In this video, we'll see how to find the area of a triangle if you know the two sides and the angle included. Depending on which two sides you're given, you can use one of those three formulas here. So for example, let's say I'm given the length of sides A and B along with the angle C. So in this case, I would end up using this because I know the side A and the side B and the angle between those two, which happens to be gamma in this case, or that gamma represents the angle C. Or if you know the sides A and C, you would end up using this formula. If you know sides B and C and the angle included between them, you would end up using this formula. So let's say, for example, we have the following problem. So let's say we want to find the area of a triangle below. So we're given, let me pull it up here. This is the triangle that we're given. So in this case, I know the side A, the side C, and the angle B. That is, I know the two sides and the angle between, which means I can apply one of this formula here. Well, what two sides do I know? Side A equals 34, side C equals 42. So in this case, I'm going to end up using this formula right here because I know A and C times the sine of your angle beta. So applying that formula, I have K equals 1/2 A times C times the sine of beta. Well, plug in the values that you know for A, C, and beta. A equals 34, C equals 42, and then beta equals 55. And if we do this simple calculation here, we end up getting approximately 585 square feet. And area is going to be in square unit, or the unit square. That's one method. And another method is, what if we know all the three sides? What if we know the length of the three sides? Well, in this case, we have what we call the Heron's formula. And that is always used if you know all the three sides. So if a triangle has sides with length A, B, and C, its area K would be given by the following formula here. The area would be equal to the square root of S times S minus A, which would be the side A, side B, side C, and S in this case would be equal to half of the perimeter. And the perimeter of a triangle is basically the distance around the shape. So side A plus side B plus side C divided by 2, or half of whatever that sum is. So let's look at this example here. So approximate the area of the triangle ABC with sides A equal to 4, B equals to 5, and C equals 7. So in this case, you know all the three sides. A random sketch would be right here. My A is going to be always, side A would be always opposite of your big A, which big A represents the angle of that side here. And that would be angle B. Side of it would be 5, and if this is angle C, the side of C would be opposite of that, which is 7. So the perimeter would be the distance around the triangle. So to go from that unit, to go from point B to point A, that's 7 units away. From A to C is 5, C to B is 4. So if I were to add all this, I get a 16. So the perimeter is 16. Half of the perimeter would be equal to half of the 16, which equals 8. So I know S equals 8 in this case. Now, how do we find the area? Well, the area is equal to, from right here, your S times S minus A times S minus B times S minus C. Remember, your S is half of the perimeter, which in this case is 8. So we're going to do the square root of 8 times 8 minus your A value times 8 minus your B value times 8 minus your C value. And then 8 minus 4 is 4. 8 minus 5 is 3. 8 minus 7 is 1. So we have 4 times 3 is 12, times 1 is 12. 12 times 8 is 96. And therefore we have the square root of 96, which is approximately equal to 9.8. And in this case, I don't have the units here. So if you don't have the units, it's going to be unit square. But if they give you the units, for example, if this was 4 meters, then the area would be meters square. And this should be able to help you to do your homework 8. Now, let's suppose I want to find the angle of ABC. Now, because I know all the 3 sides here, I'm going to have to end up using the law of cosines. So always use the law of cosines if you know all the 3 sides or the 2 sides and the angle between. That tells you to use the law of cosines. In this case, I would use the law of cosines and always find the angle across the biggest side. So in this case, the biggest side is right here. And if I were to use the law of cosines, I would find angle C first, because that would be the largest angle. So to start this off, the law of cosine says that the C square is going to be equal to the other 2 sides square, the sum of those 2, minus 2 times AB cosine of angle, this right here, gamma, is what we use for angle C. And plug on what you know. You have 7 square equals A is 4 square, B is 5 square, minus 2 times your A times your B. And then times the cosine of gamma, which in this case we don't know. And then if I continue here, I get a 49 equals 16 plus 25 minus 4 times 5 is 20 times 2 is 40. And then times the cosine of gamma. Let's continue. That would be a 49 equals 16 plus 25. That would be 41 minus 40 cosine of gamma. Now, if we continue here, those 2 I can't subtract because the 40 is being multiplied to the cosine. So that means I have to get rid of the 41 first by subtracting 41 to both sides. 49 minus 41 is 8 equals negative 40 cosine of gamma. And then we're going to end up dividing by a negative 40. Divide by a negative 40. Divide by a negative 40. This gives you a negative 0.20 equals the cosine of gamma. I'm going to continue here. So that means you have a negative 0.20 equals the cosine of gamma. How do I find gamma? Well, what we need to do here is the inverse cosine on both sides. So that means if I take the cosine inverse of this number here equals the cosine inverse of cosine gamma. Cosine inverse and cosine are inverse of one another, so this crosses with that. You're left with gamma, that is angle C, is going to be equal to the cosine inverse of this value. Let me get my calculator. And let's see, so cosine inverse of negative 0.2. And I get 101 101.54 degrees. So that means my triangle in this case would be an obtuse triangle. It's going to look like one of those This is the obtuse triangle where one of the angle is more than 90. So in this case, this would be 101.54 degrees. So that means this is my C. Side C in this case would be 7. And then we can call this A, call that B. We know the side A is 4, the side B is 5. And then to find those two angles, you can use the law of sines. If you apply the law of sines, you should be able to get an angle that's less than 90 for both cases.